Have you ever been blindsided by someone you thought you knew better than anyone else? That's exactly what happened to me. One night, over dinner, my girlfriend Marissa leaned in, gave me that sweet smile I once adored, and said, "If you really love me, you'll prove it by paying off my $35,000 student loan." No hesitation. No shame. Just a demand dressed up as a test of loyalty. My stomach dropped. Was I her partner, or her personal ATM? She thought I'd cave, hand over the money, and never ask questions. But she miscalculated. Because I don't just love, I analyze, I uncover, I expose. And this time, my instincts were right. My name is Ethan Miller. I'm 33 years old, an IT consultant based in Charlotte, North Carolina. My life had always been structured: steady job, tidy finances, and a future I thought I was carefully building with the woman I loved. Logic guided most of my decisions. I'm the kind of person who double-checks a spreadsheet before I buy a new couch. That mindset made me successful at work and, at least in my eyes, dependable at home. For the past 3 years, I'd been living with my girlfriend, Marissa. She was everything I wasn't: spontaneous, magnetic, the type of woman who could light up a room just by walking in. People gravitated toward her, and I'll admit, I did too. Her laugh was infectious, her beauty undeniable, and her energy felt like a spark I didn't know I needed. Of course, Marissa had her flaws. Who doesn't? She loved nice dinners, impulsive shopping trips, and weekend getaways that stretched my budget more than once. But I told myself that was just part of being in a relationship. Love meant compromise. And I had the financial stability to cover the difference, so why not? I'd pay for groceries, utilities, vacations, even those treat-yourself spa days she insisted she deserved. In my mind, it wasn't spoiling her, it was investing in our shared future. At least, that's what I thought. We had a comfortable rhythm. I worked long hours, came home to her cooking, or takeout, depending on her mood, and on weekends we'd meet friends or binge-watch shows. We weren't perfect, but we were solid. Or so it seemed. I trusted Marissa. I believed her when she said she was committed to us. I even started thinking about marriage, a home with a backyard, maybe even kids down the road. Then came the conversation. It was a Thursday evening, one of those humid Carolina nights where the air feels heavy. We were sitting at the dining table when Marissa set her wine glass down and gave me a look, serious, almost rehearsed. "Ethan," she began, "there's something I need to ask you. Something important." I braced myself for talk about moving, or maybe even marriage. But what came out of her mouth froze me in place. "If you really love me, you'll pay off my student loan. $35,000. It would mean everything to me." She said it so casually, like asking me to pick up milk from the store. My mind stalled. $35,000? That wasn't pocket change. It was a down payment on a house, nearly a year's salary for some people. I forced a smile, waiting for her to laugh, to say she was joking. But she didn't. She just stared at me, waiting for my answer, as if my commitment to her, our entire relationship, hung on this one financial transaction. That was the moment the first crack appeared. When Marissa dropped the $35,000 bombshell, I honestly thought I'd misheard her. $35,000? I repeated, trying to keep my voice even. She nodded, her expression dead serious. "Ethan, I'm drowning in debt. I can't breathe anymore. If you really love me, you'll do this for me. You'll help me get free." I leaned back, searching her face for some sign she was joking. But there was nothing playful in her eyes, just expectation. I asked the obvious question, "Can I see the paperwork? Just so I know what I'm paying toward." That's when her demeanor shifted. She frowned, crossed her arms, and said, "You don't trust me? Love isn't about receipts and statements. Love is about sacrifice. I thought you were different." The red flags went up immediately. My logical brain, the part that had built my career in IT and kept me financially stable, screamed at me. Who asks for 35 grand and refuses to show proof? But instead of confronting her outright, I decided to stay calm, smile, and tell her I'd think about it. What she didn't know was that the very next morning, I called in a favor. A college buddy of mine, Alex, was a forensic accountant. The guy could untangle a financial mess like nobody else. I explained the situation, trying to keep my voice neutral, and asked if he'd be willing to do some digging. He agreed, though his tone made it clear he already smelled something fishy. A week later, Alex called me with results that made my stomach drop. "Ethan," he said, "your girlfriend doesn't owe $35,000 in student loans. Her balance is about $8,700. Manageable, considering her salary." He paused. "The rest?" "Around $26,000. It's an auto loan. In her name. For a BMW." I blinked, confused. "She doesn't own a BMW." "That's because it's not for her," Alex explained. "Based on the application, she co-signed it for someone else. A man named Kyle." The name punched me in the chest. I knew exactly who that was, her ex-boyfriend. The guy she'd sworn she had zero contact with. I felt the blood drain from my face. Not only was Marissa trying to con me out of $35,000 under the guise of student loans, but she'd also been secretly financing her ex's luxury car. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was emotional too. Suddenly, the late nights she claimed were work events, the cryptic texts she brushed off as friends, the way she guarded her phone like it was a state secret, it all lined up. That evening, I tested my theory. Casually, I asked about Kyle, just to see her reaction. Her eyes flickered, just for a split second, before she plastered on a fake smile and said, "I haven't talked to him in years." But I already knew the truth. Marissa wasn't just using me. She was still tethered to her past, and she expected me to fund it. And in that moment, my love for her started to shift into something else entirely: resolve. I didn't explode. I didn't throw the thing she wanted at her or beg for an explanation. I did what I always do when faced with a problem I can't stomach emotionally. I turned it into a project. Panic is useless. Strategy wins. So I began to build one. Step 1. Financial isolation. That morning I called the bank. Joint savings, closed. Credit cards, revoked. Any auto payments with her account, redirected. It felt clinical, almost surgical, to cut that cord, but that was the point. If she wanted me to underwrite her life, she would have to prove she deserved it. No receipts, no more funding. I told myself, and truthfully meant it, that I was protecting my future. I changed passwords, removed her from billing portals, and put a fraud alert on our accounts. Small moves, but they removed the leverage she assumed she had. Step 2. Evidence building. I already had Alex's forensic report showing where the $35,000 actually went, but I needed a full dossier: message threads, bank transfers, those receipts she swore were miscellaneous. I saved every email, screenshot, and timestamp transaction. I exported chat logs, grabbed copies of her Instagram DMs, and cataloged every anonymous payment she'd made to that auto loan account. I backed up the files in multiple encrypted places and printed a hard copy packet in case anyone tried to say the files were doctored. Chain of custody matters, especially when you want the paperwork to speak louder than a tearful excuse. Step 3. Anticipate retaliation. I knew she'd react badly. People who manipulate finances rarely accept being cut off quietly. If I exited the relationship without a plan, she'd likely scream on social media, try to poison friends against me, or make my life a living nightmare at work. So I prepared for that. I wrote a timeline of events and sent a copy to a lawyer friend for safekeeping. I set my phone to record conversations, where legal. I began documenting every interaction, texts, voicemails, even in-person confrontations, so there'd be a paper trail if things escalated. Then I set up the bait. Step 4. Controlled exposure and legal leverage. If she wanted to play the public pity card, she'd do so under a microscope. I arranged the dossier so that it could be delivered in one fluid motion, to the right people at the right time. Marissa's bank, showing the loan trail, the lender who held the BMW loan, and her employer's HR department, if any misuse of corporate card or workplace impropriety showed up. I also compiled a packet for Kyle, because if his car was being paid by funds she claimed were student loans, he deserved to know who was really financing his luxury. Financial misdirection doesn't survive scrutiny. Step 5. Social control without drama. I didn't want a smear campaign. I wanted surgical exposure, facts, not rumors. So I quietly let a couple of trusted mutual friends know I was dealing with a serious financial deception, and I asked them not to engage publicly. I also queued up the legal motion, ready to file a police report for fraud or identity misuse the moment she tried to weaponize my personal information. She would have to choose: continue her smear and face documented consequences, or stop and try to salvage whatever dignity she could. That was the essence of my plan: remove her access, collect everything, anticipate her moves, and put the right people in positions to act. I wasn't seeking revenge for revenge's sake. I was preparing an environment where the truth, once revealed, would do the work for me. She'd built a house of cards. I was simply steadying myself to blow it down when the wind was right. The unraveling didn't happen overnight. It came in waves, each one crashing harder than the last. At first, Marissa tried to keep control by doing what manipulators often do: smear me before I could speak for myself. She called my office one Tuesday morning, asking to speak with HR. Her official complaint was that I was abusive, controlling, and financially manipulative. She claimed I'd left her destitute, and that my company should take a hard look at the kind of man they had representing them. What she didn't know was that I had anticipated this exact move. HR received her call, logged it, and promptly contacted me. Within minutes, I provided them with documentation: the forensic accountant's report, proof of her lies about the loans, and evidence of her attempt to use my identity to open a credit card. The officer in charge of our compliance team quietly suggested I file a police report, so I did. Just like that, her slander attempt transformed into an official case of identity theft under investigation. Marissa didn't stop there. She rallied her best friend, Tori, to her cause. One morning, my inbox pinged with an email so venomous it almost made me laugh. "If you ruin her, I'll ruin you. I'll make sure everyone knows what a fraud you are." Perfect. That was the kind of amateur mistake I'd been waiting for. I forwarded the email directly to the ethics and compliance department at Tori's company. Within 48 hours, she was suspended pending investigation. In her industry, credibility is everything. A documented threat tied to personal harassment? Career suicide. Then there was Kyle, the ghost from Marissa's past who never really left. He had been riding around in his shiny BMW, financed on the back of Marissa's deceit. But when I dropped the full file of loan documents into Marissa's lap and cut off every cent she'd been funneling his way, the situation flipped. With no one paying the monthly note, the repo truck came swiftly. One morning, neighbors watched as the car was hooked up and towed away. Kyle's pride and joy gone in under 10 minutes. But the real climax came at home. Our lease had always been under my name alone. After weeks of planning, I executed the final step. I ended the lease, signed papers for a new place, and changed the locks. When Marissa returned from a weekend away, probably with Kyle, though by then I didn't care, she stood outside my door rattling her useless key. Then came the banging, the screaming, the tears. "Ethan, you can't do this. Please, let me in. We can fix this." I opened the door just long enough to slide the notice across the floor, a copy of the sheriff's document confirming she had no legal rights to the residence. My voice was calm, steady. "You wanted independence, Marissa. Well, now you've got it." Her face twisted from shock to rage to desperation in seconds. She collapsed in the hallway, pounding the door, screaming curses and begging all at once. Neighbors opened their doors, phones out, recording the spectacle. Within hours, those clips were circulating on social media, and suddenly her narrative of "poor me, betrayed by a cruel boyfriend" didn't hold water. The world saw her unfiltered, red-faced, irrational, and exposed. The aftermath was merciless. With no apartment, no car, and no financial safety net, Marissa had to crawl back to her parents' house. Worse, she wasn't just broke, she was under investigation for attempted identity theft. That meant potential charges, court appearances, and a record that would follow her for years. Tori? She never recovered her job. In her field, reputations are fragile, and the email she sent me became the noose she tied for herself. Suspended turned into terminated, and her career went from thriving to fractured in the span of a month. Without the BMW, without Marissa covering for him, he sank fast. Word spread about his financial irresponsibility, and he became just another guy with debt collectors circling. The glamorous facade of his life crumbled into late notices and repossession slips. And me? I packed my things, locked the door to that chapter, and moved into a modern one-bedroom across town. No baggage. No drama. Just clean walls, quiet nights, and the peace of knowing I'd played it smart. Marissa thought she could use me like an ATM, thought she could manipulate me into paying off a lie. Instead, she lost everything. And I, finally, had everything I needed, freedom. When I look back on everything, the irony still makes me laugh. Marissa thought she had set the perfect trap, a demand wrapped up in the language of love. But in reality, she triggered the single smartest decision I've ever made, hiring that forensic accountant. $1,500. That's all it cost to expose a $35,000 lie and unravel the entire web she had been spinning. To this day, I call it the best investment of my life. The lesson is clear, and I hope anyone hearing my story takes it to heart. Love should never be conditional on money. The moment someone tells you that their affection depends on your wallet, it's no longer love, it's a transaction. And transactions can be audited. If I had just given in to her demand, I'd be $35,000 poorer and still in the dark. Instead, I chose clarity, and that choice set me free. What I also learned is that revenge doesn't require fists, screaming matches, or chaos. True revenge can be quiet, measured, and rooted in truth. All I had to do was shine a light on the facts. The lies collapsed under their own weight, and everyone involved, Marissa, Tori, Kyle, faced consequences they had created for themselves. I didn't destroy them. They destroyed themselves. I just stopped enabling it. And me? I walked away stronger, not bitter. I don't see myself as a victim anymore. I see myself as a man who paid some very expensive tuition in the school of life. Yes, it hurt to learn that someone I loved was capable of using me so shamelessly. But instead of letting that pain harden me, I let it sharpen me. I became wiser, more cautious, and more respectful of my own worth. Marissa is out of my life forever, and I couldn't be more grateful. I'm free, financially, emotionally, and mentally. Free to build a future without lies. Free to trust again, but this time with eyes wide open. So here's my message to you: don't ignore the red flags. Don't mistake manipulation for love. And never forget, you are worth more than any price tag someone tries to put on your loyalty. Because sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't revenge at all. It's reclaiming your peace. That was my story, how a simple demand for money exposed lies, betrayal, and manipulation, and how I turned the tables without ever raising my voice. But now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever been lied to, cheated on, or taken advantage of by someone you thought you could trust? Maybe it was a partner, a friend, or even a family member. Share your story in the comments below. You'd be surprised how many people have gone through the same thing, and your words might give someone else the courage to take back control of their life. And if you enjoy stories like this, raw, real, and filled with shocking twists, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Every week, I bring you more cheating stories, where betrayal meets justice. Trust me, the next story will be even more jaw-dropping, and you definitely won't want to miss it.